1, 2, 3, hop! I want you to take me to the side and go. I want you to take me to the side and go. I want you to shake your pants, baby, to the side and go. Oh, hey. I want you to shake it. Shake it from the side and go. Come on now, shake it, shake it from the side and go. We're gonna shake your pants, baby, to the side and go. Oh, hey. Feel it now, ha! All right, yeah. Burn it! Do it! I want you to shout now! Shout now! Shout for the side and go! Let me hear you shout! Shout! Shout for the side and go! I want you to shout all night, baby, to the side and go! Another big one, y'all! Are you ready? Ready? Ha! Take me to the side and go. Oh, yeah. Yeah, buddy.
Welcome to the Grand at Home. This is Cocktail Hour. We're glad to have you here with us. My name is Joe Ferlo. I am the director of the Grand Oshkosh. We have our drinks in tow. We're ready to spend an hour or so with you. You had a great musical introduction there from MOJO and the Bayou Gypsies. And joining me live is from the Bayou is one of my dearest friends in the industry, the founder, the star, the MOJO himself, Mr. MOJO. Welcome, and thanks for being with us, friend.
So glad to be here with you, Joe, and all the wonderful people out there around the world watching tonight.
This is going to be a fun time for us. We were chatting a little bit, obviously, before we came on air, and just making sure we knew what was going on with each other. But you know, as I tell people often when I'm describing booking conferences, what it's like when we are going off and having conversations and working and what over the years, what bothers me when I go and I get a hard sell or a person just kind of comes after me or whatever along the way. And it turns out over the years that the most successful relationships you have are the ones where there's almost no selling involved. You're just kind of meeting each other, you're talking, you're finding out what's new, and you know, with a nudge maybe, that when the time's right, the conversation's going to happen, and we're going to go. And that's happened twice for us. Actually, the first time, I like to tell people that I inherited you the first time. You were booked. You were booked at Grand already when I came on board. The second time was entirely my choice, and did we have a good time?
Yeah, we did.
For those who weren't involved at the time, MOJO came in a day early. We had one of our producer circle events, which is where I introduced the artists to key donors at the Grand in a purely social setting. And we have a little interview, kind of not unlike this right here, but MOJO, I knew obviously for years, and he and I have shared on the social medias a fair amount of of food photographs. So I knew he was a chef. And let's talk about that meal you prepared.
That meal was a lot of fun, and we raised a lot of money. It really was a gratifying experience. It's kind of the way I operate. And Joe just mentioned how we put artists and theaters together to do a show, and there's selling involved in a lot of cases. And just like Joe just said, I don't do things like other people do. I'm kind of well known for being different. Some think I'm weird, some think I'm just different. But at the same time, the presenters come in to talk to me to decide whether they want to present my show. As I get to know them, I'm trying to decide, do I want to have some fun with this person, or do I want to stay away? So I have a reputation for saying no more than saying yes. And it just, I want it to be the greatest experience ever in your theater when we come there. And I want you to get letters for years saying that was the best show you ever had. And for me, I mean, when I first got in performing arts, when I was doing the concert performances on the stage, I was a little uncomfortable when we would get those comments, that's the best show you ever had in the theater, or that was the best time we ever had. Because every show should be the best show ever that night. And that's my goal. That's why I mentor so many people. And part of the mentoring is just being an example. And one of the examples that we did was what Joe just mentioned. Zydeco T. Carrier, we've been together in the show for 30 years, over 30 years now. She's from Church Point, Louisiana, Roy Carrier's sister. And we flew in a day early to help Joe treat his biggest donors, give them a lifetime memory. So we cooked for him. We had a ball. And then Joe found that clip and put it out there today. We got a lot of comments on that clip, even from the radio station whose cap I was wearing in the kitchen. They sent me a note. Thank you so much for wearing the cap.
And boy, did we eat that night. Did we eat well?
We made a chicken and sausage gumbo. We made a shrimp etouffee, and I think we made a chicken and sausage, or shrimp and sausage, something. We made a jambalaya. We had the chef local there made us pastries and stuff like that for dessert. It was fabulous. It really was fabulous.
It was a good time. And I have to tell you, I've tried to make that jambalaya since, and it ain't quite the same. The little Italian boys can't do that quite the same way.
Well, little Italian boys can save the life of Louisiana boys when they're in Milwaukee and they can't.
Another good story.
That's a true story, everybody. We were in Milwaukee for some professional thing. I don't remember what it was. And I had been there for like 48 hours. And all apologies to Milwaukee. I didn't find anything that I enjoyed. We have a very high standard in South Louisiana. Our cooking and our foods are, not to die for, but to kill for. And so I had a hard time finding something to eat that I enjoyed. And the phone rings at 11 or 10 in the morning in my hotel, and it's Joe Ferlo. He says, "How you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing terrible. I can't find a damn thing to eat that I like here. I tried this and I tried that. They said it was the best. It was the worst stuff I ever ate." He said, "I'll be there at 1 o'clock and I'll pick you up and we'll go have something good." Picks me up. He takes me, what's the name of that? Glorioso's? Glorioso's Italian deli in Milwaukee. And we ate, first we started with dessert. We were there for 3.5 hours. Not only did we eat dessert, then we had a meal. Take your mute off. Take your mute off. Turn off your mute. You're muted.
Yep, I got it. We ate the meal first. Then we ate the dessert. Then we ate the stuff you bought to bring back to the hotel.
Right.
We ate for hours. But that was a great start for the conference for me.
Oh, it was great. It was, and I still tell that story. I finally found something wonderful to eat.
You got a date right there from Bella.
The young lady's going to take me to Jimmy's. Jimmy's hot dogs, I hope you're talking about. famous Red Hots.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ola from Chicago. Nice to see you there, Bella. Thank you.
Now you've got some Chicago connections too. We know you as your music and your style, your demeanor, your whole personality comes from the South Louisiana. But you also have Chicago roots as well.
Well, and not exactly roots. What happened was in 1985, we were primarily in the corporate market, corporate events, performances. And in 1985, I moved my family to Chicago. It was the third largest entertainment market in the United States, especially for corporate events. And they were very lucrative. That was our primary income for years. And I could, at that time, using Chicago O'Hare Airport, I could put my whole band on either coast for $1,000 or less of airfare. So it was the perfect place to be. And we honed our skills when we were there. We started in the nightclubs when we first went to Chicago. And I tell the story, particularly to the young people who are bemoaning how hard it is to be in this business. We started, we would play from, I think, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., something like that. And at the end of the night, everybody in the band got $25 and I got nothing. So we did that far too long. We played the nightclubs until 1994. We played in the nightclubs. We had worked our way to the #1 nightclub in the United States. It's still in existence, but Playboy named it the #1 club in the country. That was the Cubby Bear Lounge in Chicago. And we were very glad to be there. The audience was crazy. I mean, they had those fire horses, in front of us and everything, because they were really rowdy and going crazy. And I remember at the end of the night, I had trouble getting my money. And I went through an argument, and it was all about, well, they had agreed to pay me a certain amount and they found out that I played somewhere else for less and they didn't want to pay me more than the other guy paid. It was really unpleasant. But ultimately, I got my money about an hour of arguing later because I had a contract. Walked in the dressing room and I said, gang, it's the last nightclub we're ever going to play. And it was. It's the last nightclub we've ever played, except for going to do benefits.
Well, your Chicago friends are weighing in. I'm glad to have them here on the Grand at Home.
Hey, Joe, thank you. Take me to Manny's anytime.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Oh, my God. That gentleman, Joe Holtzman, he said first met Mojo at an outdoor festival on State Street in Chicago. That night, that was in 1995, and I had had a car wreck 3 days before. And I had 2 herniated discs in my back, and I had vertigo. So I'm trying to go to the show, and I can't stand up. I keep falling down. And I went to a chiropractor, and he put my head on straight. And I was able to get a ride to the show, and I was able to do the show as long as I didn't turn my head like this. If I turn my head like this, Joe, thank you for reminding me of that show in 1995 and the vertigo when I kept falling down.
Listen, there's something we haven't talked about a lot, and the folks here in Oshkosh, they know you and they know the band, and they've sold out the place a couple times for you, and we've had a real good, as you would say, we've passed a good time, right? Together. And but I think that there's other things you do, and if I stumble through this, understand that you and I have never really talked a lot about it, but I've always been impressed. Every so often I'll see a post from you on social media, and you'll be talking about a young person who maybe has been facing some problems in life, who you've spent some time with and you've made friends with. And can we talk a little bit about some of the young friends you've made over the years through that kind of work?
Absolutely, because they're all inspirations for others, and they don't mind being talked about.
Well, good. Then let's talk. How did you first become involved? Is all do you meet all of your folks through Shriners? Is that how that happens, or what got you involved, and what kept you coming back?
The answer is very simple. I was raised by really good people. My daddy was a Shriner. He came back from World War II, and there was a crippled boy in the neighborhood, and he wanted to help him. So he found out about Shriners Hospital for Children, and he got that kid in there for free. And that kid really, he had surgeries and he could walk eventually. And when Daddy had that experience, he said, man, I want to do that. I want to be one of those. And he became a Shriner. He became a 32nd degree Mason and Shriner. And that was before I was born, about 4 or 5 years before I was born. So I was raised in the shadow of a great man who spent his life helping other people, particularly children. You couldn't walk. I mean, I would go walk with my daddy. You couldn't walk down the street without half the people that walked across knowing who he was, coming up, slapping him on the back, saying hello. And he remembered everybody. He taught me how to help all those kids. And that's what I did. So he was my example. And he Daddy was a character. My mom and Daddy were real characters. As I told somebody just today who was doing a story about us, I don't have any relatives that I know of who are not extremely colorful. Really colorful. And now I forgot where I was going with the story. Oh well, it was a good story. Anyway. Good to see you, Jackie.
So you were raised. So the desire to help young people came from your parents, your daddy, and what a great thing to be able to say at our age that you looked up to your daddy, and you know that's great. So
I was lucky. My daddy always used to say, "Son, I never met a bad child. I met a lot of really bad parents," and he was right. He was right.
Do you seek out when you're visiting communities? Do you seek out hospitals and children in those communities?
Yes, we do. We always make it known to the presenter. For those people who are not familiar with our industry in the performing arts, there's roughly 3 branches that work together to deliver an artist to an audience. There's the artist and the audience, obviously, and their relationship. But to make it happen where we all get together in one place for a magical night requires a presenter. That's the people who operate the venue where we all get together. And there are often agents and managers involved as well. So when we talk about presenters or agents, or we talk about managers, or we talk about artists and audiences, they're all part of a big supply chain of the arts. So where was your question again?
Oh my gosh, Mojo! I said, do you go to the seek them out in the communities you go to?
Yeah. So every time we do a show, we donate outreach to the community free. And I always tell them, if you give it away, we give it away. So we've played in hospitals, we've played in schools, we've played in senior centers, we played a lot of different places. We played in malls, you know, we get in there, we do our sound check. We've done shows for children where they'll bring in a whole theater or turn the crowd and do 2 shows for kids right after we do our sound check. So spreading a little bit of joy in a charitable way is just part of what we do. And I always tell people, you're not paying for the show. The show is really our gift. What you're paying for is the business that brings us there. And our goal is to give you a lifetime memory.
You know, one of my favorite stories told to me, gosh, it was got to be a good 20, 25 years ago. I presented Charlton Heston and his wife, Lydia, and they did Love Letters, the 2-person play. But as part of it, you know, when you get an artist of that caliber, I acted as their body man while they were in town. I drove them. I made sure they had everything they needed. So we spent a lot of time together. And we were at a dinner, and we sat with Chuck. Call me Chuck, he used to say. I'm like, I'm going to call you Moses. Call me Chuck. We were sitting at dinner, and he was legit a storyteller. And as we sat there, he was talking about being on the set of the 10 Commandments. and he was on the set with oh gosh, give me a second, Edward G. Robinson, who he called Eddie. He said, so he's sitting in the chair right between scenes, and it's hot, and he's sitting there with Eddie, and some extra was complaining about the heat and the humidity and how uncomfortable he was. And he said, Eddie turned to me and he said, Chuck, I always figured that they paid me for the sitting around, and the acting I do for free. And I've never forgotten it. It's important to know that if you don't enjoy the performing part, especially in a hall like the Grand, audience is going to know. And if you do enjoy it, they're going to have a good time. And boy, do they have a good time when MOJO and the Bayou Gypsies are in town. I want to speaking though of that audience participation, we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
I'm very proud of the fact that we're going to open with a socially distanced audience on September the 12th. That'll be our first thing with a band that echoes MOJO's ability to have a good time in a whole different genre. So I'm going to come back. When we come back, we're going to talk about the band MOJO, but we're going to take 60 seconds and meet B-Twins.
Awesome.
They know how to have a good time too.
And they are really nice kids. I met them in New York. I met the two of them.
Nice kids. They are. And I'm looking forward to that. That's a good way to celebrate getting back into it, even if you're going to have a small crowd.
Absolutely.
So I want to catch up on a couple of comments here. You were talking about your daddy earlier, and Jacqueline had a comment that I thought was great. But she also asked you a question. I don't know where. Hard to answer these questions about when, isn't it?
It is hard because we don't know when we're going to come back. My entire goal at the moment is to stay healthy and make it to the other side so we can come back on the stage. And I consider myself in an intermission for 12 to 18 months. It's going to take that long. That's what we're thinking.
The truth is, yeah, we're going to have to be really careful with what we do and how we do it up to that time. And especially, do you feel like, not just because of the closeness of you and the band, but also the closeness of you and the audience, that it becomes even more difficult because you can't really have the show you want unless you're wandering through the crowd and leading a kick line, right?
Right. If I can't get in the audience, I feel like I got cheated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, like I said, I'm a little bit eccentric, you know. Before people knew who we were, I was crazy, but now that they know who we are, I'm just eccentric. But I've refused to go on until they take down the fences in front of stages, things like that, because I want the people right with me. Thank you, Brother Steve. Notice Brother Steve Shank wrote, "Looking good MOJO," but I remember back years ago when they used to say, "Good looking MOJO."
Yeah. You know, I was thinking when you were talking about, the fact that you used to be crazy and now you're eccentric.
Right.
I don't find you either of those. Of course, that's because I've been crazy and have remained crazy throughout all of this time. So,
well, we perceive by contrast, and there's no contrast when we look at each other.
We are going to ask Jacqueline whether you and I are more entertaining on whatever back meds she might be on right now after surgery. We're just going to accept that we're entertaining the folks on our own right now. Let's talk about your band. They are kind of family to you, I know, especially you and T have been together for a long time, but a lot of your band members have been with you for quite some time. Isn't that true?
We're only on the second generation in 35 years. This is our 35th anniversary season, and it's kind of weird to celebrate the season being in the COVID-19 intermission, but this is our 35th season. This is only the second generation. The Zydeco T has been with me. We've been together all over the world 30 years now. My drummer, John Moser, has been with us 23 or 24 years. My bass player, Brian Burke, has been with us for 19 years. And our fiddler, Greg Hurt, has been with us 17 years. And our percussionist, who is on some shows and also subs on drums, he's been with us 19 years. So all the people you see on stage or you see in the videos are the people who are going to show up in your theater.
And they're one of those guys, they can play.
Oh, yeah.
They can play.
They're monsters.
Yeah, they can play.
I heard somebody once said, well, they don't really take off. And I said, you got to understand, they're playing Zydeco music. They're not playing high energy modern jazz,
Which one of your folks saw the ghost in the Grand? One of them did.
Well, we all saw the chalk lines in the Grand. The first time we're at the Grand, where the dressing rooms are in the basement. Mm-hmm. Here they'd be below the water line.
Right.
So I asked for a cup of coffee, and I think it was Joe said, down the hall, last room on the right. Walk in the door, and there's chalk lines from a body on the ground in the coffee room. I came back. I said, what happened? He said, well, that's where they found the guy that's the ghost. And then our bass player, Brian, actually, I can introduce the band members through a little video.
Yeah, we want to do that. So can you talk and cue that up at the same time? And then when you're ready, I'll put it on.
So Brian, our bass player, his wife is from Japan, and she had just come back to America and didn't speak a lot of English. And we had her convinced everything in Oshkosh was haunted. Poor baby. I'm going to share this with you. This is a video shot by Joe Gallo, who did the movie about our career and my life. This is called Sound Check.
Boogie kid. Did I feel alright? Pretty alright.
Have we lost him?
I'm here.
Your band left us, though.
Well, you couldn't see it?
I couldn't see it.
Okay,
Could you?
I could see it. It didn't work.
Well, then let's hope that if you could see it, the people saw it.
All right, somebody send us a note and let us know if you could see it.
That's right. That's right. So now you just got to tell me about them. You told me about them. What I want to know is when you're on the road, I mean, you guys have been together for a long time. Do you spend your time together on the road, or do you try to, do you get your distance as you go?
No, absolutely. We travel like a family. We do things together. We travel together. We enjoy each other. We love each other. We've really been a wonderful family. Although, the relationships have changed over the years. I don't remember what city we were in, but we're driving along. And T always rides. She'll either ride shotgun or way in the back sleeping. And she started to describe something that the boys were doing. And I said, T, we can't call them the boys anymore. The youngest one's over 40 years old. Yeah, but each one of them, Brian and John were 23 years old when they started. Greg was 26. And now 35 years, I wasn't even born yet.
I'm sure.
Yeah, we have a running story that I'm 26 years old, but I got a hell of a lot of experience at it.
Speaking of long-time parties, though, the other thing that, we were talking about conferences earlier.
Yes.
And we were talking about relationships and how they just kind of develop over time. You have, one of the things that I do that when I get a taste of artists along the way, they get showcases. They sign up for times. You pay for the time. And over the course of an evening, you could see there are hundreds of showcases, little 20-minute shows going on all over the hotel and other places. And if you're in New York, it's off-site. I've never really thought of your showcase as a showcase because it's not 20 minutes. It's usually like an hour or more. It's just one big old party, isn't it?
Yeah, when we first, by the time we got to the performing arts market, we got into performing arts in 2001 after 9/11. We were in the corporate business until 9/11, and then we had to get out because they were done.
Mm-hmm.
Into the performing arts. So we started in 2001 in the concert performances in the performing arts market. And at first we would showcase and try to show what we do. And then after a year, after the first year of doing it, we wound up saying, I said, what are we trying to do that for? Why don't we just do what we do and have a party? Because that's what we do when we come to the theater anyway. After a while, everybody was coming to experience the MOJO show, MOJO and the Bayou Gypsies. And then after a while, it became a thing. Well, as soon as I finish doing my work, we're going to go party with MOJO. So we don't really even recruit people to come. I produce these showcases so that particularly young artists and some seasoned artists who are just breaking into performing arts to cut their teeth and have a chance to perform in front of some of these theaters because they're fabulous artists. But for us, it's our way of saying hello and throwing a little party. These professional organizations wear you out when you are involved. I mean, it's brutal. The physical and mental toll is brutal when you're working in that conference mode. So we try to give them a little oasis in the middle of everything. They just come and they dance and they shout and they scream and they meet their friends at our showcases and they just have a ball.
Well, and you also have the badge of honor for a showcase, I think, is, people on my side of the aisle go to showcases because we're researching and looking for things. But artists and agents from other agencies go to showcases to be entertained and have fun.
Right.
And you got a lot of those people in your room, some of them up there on the floor dancing. And it's a real badge of honor to the entertainment value.
Thank you very much. I would say when we do the conference showcases, we usually have a huge contingent from the professional organization itself. We have the presenters who are first timers and buyers. We have a bunch of agents and managers that come, and we have other artists that come just to hang out and experience it because it's fun. I just always wanted to touch the heart, make people laugh, clap, dance, sing, shout, hurt their feet from having so much fun, and then collapse and say, I can't wait till I can do that again.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
here's
I
a
do.
question.
Yes, sir.
There are a lot of people who entertain with band or on their own, or they're playing in a one-man show, who, when they get on stage, are assuming a character or a persona that's different from who they are off the stage.
Right.
How much of MOJO that we see on stage is MOJO that we're talking to right now?
Who you see on stage is what has had to come out of me all my life. It's a part of me. I mean, it's me. It's me. I wear the same, tonight I'm wearing the same clothes I wear at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have a fancier shirt on tonight. It's me. I mean, that's who I am. I live a very private life, anonymous life. Very few of our friends know what I do for a living. Almost everyone here at home has not ever seen our show live unless they came. I only do benefits at home. I do 1 in 5 benefits a year at home, but only benefits. I don't do any paid performances at home because this is my way of giving back to the community. So this is a part of me. And like my mama always used to say, son, you were able to turn a behavior problem into a career. And that's basically it. It's who I am. It's got to come out, and it comes out when I get on stage. But if I'm home, I'm a pretty quiet, private man.
Mm-hmm.
I raised my 2 children myself, and I had to be pretty anonymous because you think about it, a man who gets sole custody of his daughters at the end of the 80s, first part of the 90s, that was a pretty amazing thing to have happen.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, and I want to respect privacy and at the same time talk about a couple of things that seem public enough that they're on your Facebook page where you have roughly 2 million people who are friends, it seems. You live on some beautiful land, an expansive land when it's not underwater, and sitting on your front porch, frankly, is something that I look forward to doing with you sometime. How do you leave home to travel for an extended amount of period when home is so wonderful?
It's pretty difficult, I will admit, and I do get the envie to go home when I'm on the road. I've got to watch my language. I get the desire to go home when I'm on the road. That's primarily why we do one-offs. We fly out, we do our show, and fly back the next day most often.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of how we do it. We used to spend, sometimes I'd be gone 6 months, and that was hard. But it's what motivates me. The life that I lead, the things that bring me the greatest joy are things you cannot buy. They're just part of your life if you live it well. And those are the thoughts, feelings, the muse for all my music that I share with the audience. And if I can touch their lives, and at the end of a night, somebody will say, oh my God, now I want to go to Louisiana. I've really done something. Or if they come up to me and they said, I've had 3 really hard years. This is the first happiness I've been able to give my family. That says a lot. And people, they always say, oh my God, I never did that before. I never thought anyone would ever get me to stand up and scream and shout and dance. Or I never thought anybody would get me on stage, stuff like that. And it's just hilarious what happens. But that's what I do. I try to bring out the human essence in every person I contact. I used to say years ago when we would come into audiences that were uptight, I used to say, I have to pry their butts open so they can get out of their chairs. They're so tight.
So do you think that in some ways that that having the time to be the MOJO who's, cooking some really good food and kicking your feet up on the front porch at Maison MOJO is necessary to fuel the high energy MOJO who's fronting MOJO and the Bayou Gypsies? Don't you, is there like a yin and yang to that?
Yeah, there is a yin and yang to that. And our photographer for the last 25, 26 years is Steve Harmon. He was the director of photography for the Tennessean in Nashville, in Franklin, Tennessee. He's been shooting us. And when he first started, he said, there was something that comes over you, MOJO. He said, I can see it in your eyes. When you walk out on the stage, something takes over. And it's true. There's a power that comes out that makes me want to share and really make a difference in the audience lives. It's a shared experience. We are nothing without the audience. It's the audience that keeps us excited and we keep them excited. And together, I always say at the end of the night, I ask them if they had a good time, and I always say, remember, we are all family now. We bring people together. We are pure Americana. I tell people that, the Europeans love us. They love us because we are pure Americana to them. We are young, we are old, we are male, we are female, we are black, we are white, we speak multiple languages, and we have a good time. And we really express the joy of being Americans and the freedom that we have and the fun that we have. Our joy of life is immense. The Europeans really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
They when I walk on the stage, they like to go, oh, cowboy, cowboy. But then, during the interviews, they know we're based in Chicago. Our offices are in Chicago. Management and booking are really based in Chicago, and they also go Chicago. Capone.
Well, Louisiana has a little bit of a reputation for too, but we won't go there.
Yeah.
You mentioned languages. Let's talk about that a little bit. Okay. In case there's someone that doesn't know, you're American, you're Louisianan. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Not bad for an Italian. Why the heck do you speak so much French?
Well, Louisiana is really a French. It was a French colony.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of French people from France, from French colonies. And then the Cajuns came here, Creoles out here. So French is an integral part of the culture here in Southwest Louisiana. The famous cowboy poet, Dr. Baxter Black, is one of my buddies. I met him through my buddy Doc Hubal, who passed away. But Baxter, he said one of my favorite things about where we live. He said, Breaux Bridge, Louisiana is America's favorite foreign country. And it really is. I mean, we have different food, we have different language, we have different people, we have a joy of life, we dance, we eat good, and it's gorgeous here.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that day. As I recall, this was the year that there was a conference going to happen down in New Orleans, and I was going to sneak down there, sneak over to see you, and we were going to kick back on the front porch together.
That's right.
And this little COVID thing got in the way. But it's gotten in the way of a lot of things. I want to talk about that a little bit. And but before we do, I want to take one more little break here because although you're sipping, mine needs a refill. So
it would take me more than an hour to drink.
So one of the things that's happening at Grand this year, I'm anxious to be ahead of the curve in as safe a way as possible, right? So we're doing this social distance seating. We've been closed. We were one of the first to close and one of the first to get online after that. But looking forward, I want to get open. I want people to feel safe and find our way through it. But I've gone very light in the fall, and then things start to pick up around the holidays and the spring. And hopefully we've got more than just a few seats. If not, we'll make do from there. But I want to preview one of the holiday things because you're one of those people who loves playing in the Grand, and these folks are another group that came for their first time at the Grand, and then they played the Grand, and I was able to get them back, which is great. And I'm able to get them back for a third time now. They are the four Broadway Phantoms.
It's a fabulous show.
Yeah, and this year they've got something special for us happening in the holiday season. We're going to take a break, look at that, then we're going to come back, you and me.
Please.
nothing authorized inside your mind.
Hi, we're the Four Phantoms.
I'm Brent Barrett.
I'm John Cudia.
I'm Frank D'Ambrosio.
I'm Huron Sheehan.
And I'm Kaylee Voorhees.
This December, we're returning to the Grand Oshkosh with a very special holiday show.
This show is sure to get you in the holiday spirit.
Yeah, but don't worry, you're also going to be hearing all of your Phantom favorites too.
Speak softly, love, and hold me warm against your heart. I feel your words, the tender trembling moments start. We're in a world, our very own, sharing a love that only few have ever known.
My broken soul won't be alive or whole till I hear you sing once more. No, not me. All I care about is doing the guide who's picking on you, twisting the wrist that's turning the screw. Is I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so. Sing, my angel of music.
He's there, the Phantom of the Opera.
Sing!
Help me make the music of the
Thank you for sharing that, Joe.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, if you are near the Grand, go see that show. The lead Phantom has performed as the Phantom more than any other actor in the world.
2,600 and something performances.
All right, Frank D'Ambrosio is one of my dearest, kindest friends. I love the guy. He's just a brilliant talent. He's good to young people. He teaches young people everywhere he goes. And we became fast friends working together because we're first generation Americans from ethnic families. And we had that instant bond. We wound up talking about food. We wound up talking about our grandmas and our grandpas and our parents. And we've been friends ever since. He alone would be a fabulous treat. But The Four Phantoms is a marvelous show. Please go.
Thank you for that. So now I want to get back. I was talking before we took that break. We were talking about how I almost made it to New Orleans and I almost got to your front porch, and that was a conference for NAPAMA, National Association of Performing Arts, NA Performing Arts. Do it for me, please. I refilled.
The North American Performing Arts Managers and Agents.
Those people.
Right.
Talk about, I mean, people who know me and have heard me do my grand song and dance know that, there are agencies and Wisconsin presenters, there are presenters organizations. There are people who get together on my side of things. What is NAPAMA? Because it is the premier association for that group. And why the heck would someone on my side of the aisle, as we would say, be a part of that?
Well, NAPAMA, the North American Performing Arts Managers and Agents, really is the premier professional organization, professional association for managers, agents, and independent self-represented artists. We also have a component membership of presenters. We're what we call a cooperative voice. We are cooperating competitors We compete with each other it's in the same marketplace, but we work together. There's about 550 organizations that are members right now. I'm on my 6th year on the board of directors, and my sentence ends in January. I will have paid my debt to society. But 6 years, we all spend 3 to 6 years as board members. It's a 100% volunteer organization, a real melting pot of people in the profession who share ideas. I'm going to speak plainly. I'll tell you what our inside slogan is, and those who, I hope there are no kids watching. Our inside slogan is, we know our shit and we share it. And we're a really positive organization. We jumped right in when COVID hit and shut us down. We jumped right in to continue supporting the artists, agents, managers, and presenters, working on ways that we can recover, working on ways we can survive till we can come back, working on ways of developing relationships and preparing our theaters, dealing with mitigation, dealing with contracts, dealing with language we need to move forward, all in the goal of keeping our industry moving forward and not letting it die.
You know, and let's talk about that a little bit, because as I feel like right now on a split screen, I'm not quite sure that you can get 2 more positive people on the screen from 2 different sides of this. The fact is, our industry, you know, is never going to be the same, and going to see a show is never quite going to be the same. But the good news is that there are people like you and like me and like our colleagues who are working to find out what, you know, we keep saying, if I had a nickel for every time I heard new normal, you know, but the fact is that that's going to be that way. And if you had told me that the last, you know, whatever years of my career were going to be spent, all the rules would change, I might have changed careers along the way. But the fact is, it is something to be worked on from both, or you mentioned 3 sides, all sides of the equation. There's no way we're going to get this done without working and communicating together. What do you think is going to happen? What's it going to be like for you? What do you think that, I not worry, but I mourn a little bit the idea that some of the closeness between artists and audience that actually make a show at the Grand so special. I don't want that to be lost, and yet I think it's possible that the era of, you know, hugging every audience member in the lobby is probably over. How do you feel about that? How do you think about, you know, because you are an artist who relies on your bond with the audience.
Right.
How do you feel about what's happening, or how we're going to find our way back to it?
I look at it very realistically. First of all, I don't think we're going to put 1,000 people in an auditorium together, seated next to each other, until at least a year or 18 months from now, until we have a proven vaccine and probably 90 days minimum of herd immunity.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't going to happen, because we can find all the mitigation we want, but I'm on the NAPAMA COVID-19 task force, and I speak in a lot of things, and I sit in a lot of things. We can do all the mitigation. We can have a vaccine. We can have a treatment, but the big variable is audience confidence. Are they going to be confident that they can go to the theater, get crazy, have a good time, see something amazing without getting sick? And I think we're going to have to mitigate even afterward, because, you know, a lot of things are optional. If there's a cure, it doesn't mean anybody has to take it.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a vaccine, it doesn't mean anybody has to take it. So you're always at risk until you know there's a huge portion of the population that's not going to get sick. My daughter practices, she's a brain cancer specialist in New York City at Sloan Kettering. And she said, Dad, the best prescription I can give you for COVID is don't get it. That's the key. So for myself, as my daddy would say, look, at least we're alive to complain about it. And the trick is let's stay alive till it's safe for us all to come back and party. And if we start doing some of the mitigation, like only doing 25% capacity, well, we'll start selling to 10,000 seat theaters.
Right. Well, you know, and I like, you know, I'm very proud of our staff. We're very lucky too, that I've been able to hold on to core staff through all this. So they've been able to take, you know, some real creative approaches to how we're going to do this. We've got a plan in place. We're probably a week away from announcing what it's going to look like. I'm very pleased, and I think it's going to create that. But the math isn't kind. You know, losing the intermission income is not kind. Losing the after show business is not kind, and losing, you know, 40, 50, 60% of your seats makes the math hard. But you know what? If we don't do it, who is gonna, right? We got to be at the center of finding our way back to celebrating our lives together. So the venues and the artists and the agents who are helping are going to be critical to it. And my hats are off. I mean, I've been very lucky in my venue. Most of the artists that I had already talked to about next year, knowing that I was going to have to reduce capacity, basically said, look, we'll do 2 shows.
Right.
You know, we're in town, we'll do 2 shows, and we'll do our best to get your numbers where it works to make it work. You know, and if there's a silver lining to this, I think the communication between artist and agent and presenter has become more open
Right.
than it ever has been. I mean, I have no problem saying, look, I got 200 seats now. I can't pay X. I can't do X. How are we going to make this work? And either the artist is going to say, yeah, I'm not going to do it, or we can't make it work, but we'll talk later, which is fine. Or they're going to say, I want to get there. Let's see if we can make this work. So
many variables there. You know, and the other thing is, I'm in the twilight of my career. You know, I call myself one of the gray-haired members of the community. And there are young people who are very excited right now, and they're really driven, and they really want to figure out how to do it. And you have to face reality. I had a phone call just the other day, and I think he's watching. He's a brilliant young performer. He does a tribute, and he impersonates 4 different frontmen and bands. He's fabulous. And he called me all excited. He said, Mojo, I figured out how to sell my show now. We can do my show in 4 parts, and then the audience can choose which ones they want to come see. And I said, well, there's one problem there. The mitigation is a minimum turnover of 90 minutes to 2 hours. So you're going to be performing for a very long time and waiting around to do all 4 60-minute shows. You know, there are so many variables, and really a lot of experience is required to understand what's feasible, what's justified, what's risky, and to move forward, preserving the health and safety of the audience. There are a lot of young performers, particularly who are hot to trot, and they're still doing shows, but they're putting their audiences at risk, whether they won't admit it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they admit it or not is irrelevant. But my encouragement is, let's wait till it's safe. And my argument is, look, if I think there's a threat to health and safety and I'm wrong, nobody gets sick.
That's right.
If you think there's no risk of health and safety and you're wrong, people are going to die. So I'd rather be safe, because I am nothing. MOJO and the Bayou Gypsies is nothing without our audience.
Well, and I like to tell people now, you know, and I truly believe it. I understand the challenges that venues are facing right now, and I've read studies where they say that, you know, giant numbers of independent venues, giant percentages aren't going to make it.
Right.
And I just, you know, my answer is we're not going to be one of those.
Right.
And we'll be back. I don't know necessarily when, but I do know if. And the answer to if is yes. Yes, and frankly, I'm excited about September 12th, but I'm also realistic. If something in the great scope of the world changes between now and September 12th, then it'll be whenever it will be. There is a plan B. There's always a plan B, and as long as we keep working together on that, there's we will be celebrating again in the Grand. Absolutely. And you will be dancing down that aisle at some point, and we'll just find our way through it. In the meantime, we look for all kinds of things, and as we get to the to the bottom of the hour, let's talk. We ended up talking through all of our clips. Sorry about that, but that's okay.
Let's get some questions from the audience.
Yeah, I don't see any more popped up yet. So if they pop up, we'll grab them. Please ask your questions if you have them. But in the meantime, let's talk about Mojo Weekend. Let's talk about tomorrow night. If people have tuned in and gone, wow, I only got to see the Bayou Gypsies at the beginning and the end of the show. I'd like some more. Thanks to you. Tomorrow night, we're going to come on in this format at 7:30, and we'll talk for 5 or 10 minutes and introduce the show. But then at 7:45, the audience is going to get a full concert, and bless you for that. Thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about what they're going to see, where that concert was and how it went, because it's pretty exciting to see.
Well, what they're going to see is a typical Mojo and the Bayou Gypsy show. It's a theater outside Chicago that we filmed in. I produced it ostensibly for two things, for television and also for our outreach to China. China has to see the entire show from beginning to end before the censors will let it go. So it's a 6-camera shoot. The sound is fabulous by incredible Grammy nominee Timothy Powell. He was the recording and mixing engineer on site. Metro Mobile Recording, 33 or 35 Grammy nominations, and it was mastered by my dear friend who just passed away a few weeks ago, Mr. Danny Leake, who was Stevie Wonder's front of house engineer for 30 years. The sound is spectacular. The video is spectacular. There's 1,000 people going crazy in the theater, including about 55 or 70 up on the stage with us. It's one take live from beginning to end. So it's a true experience. It's not something shot in a studio with retakes. It's the real deal, what you will experience when you come to the theater with Mojo and the Bayou Gypsies.
I think it's going to be great. And
it's music.
Yes, tomorrow, that is, at 7:45. 7:30, you and I are going to come on. One of the things we're going to talk about in the 10 minutes, I promise, because you're going to remind me, is I want to talk about what is it, the movie, the Magic of the MOJO? What is
the Magic Behind the
Behind the MOJO?
Right.
There's a fabulous film that follows you through a concert process, correct? Right. Behind the scenes?
It starts sound check at a fabulous, and then we're down in the dressing room, and we come out, we start the concert, and it goes through showing what we do on the stage, and then talks about my life. They actually came to Louisiana, filmed. It was over a 2-year process of filming, done by Phil Gallo and his wife Jane Gallo, and the film really touches home. The film has been nominated for lots of awards. All I can say is I'm the subject, but the brilliant creator is Joe Gallo and Jane Gallo, his wife.
That's wonderful. We're going to look forward to that. So with a little bit of luck, Mojo, we didn't have very much luck with the first share of screen. People like you and me who are 29 and older shouldn't be fiddling around with this technology right now, but we'll see if we can work. I'd like to close. I'm going to use, speaking of people on stage dancing and finding their ways, I think the best way to close is with the Mojo Boogie.
Oh, absolutely.
So we'll use that to play us out if I know what I'm doing. In the meantime, Mr. Mojo, here's to us and to our audiences. Let's all stay well until we can party together again.
Salute.
And thank you for spending some time with us this evening. I'm Joe Ferlo from the Grand. That's Mr. Mojo of Mojo and the Bayou Gypsies. And they are going to play us out with a little bit of luck right now with the Mojo Boogie. Wait a minute. Here it comes.
Go full screen.
Get on up and strut your stuff. Everybody get up and strut your stuff and do the mojo boogie. Boogie woogie high now. Do the mojo boogie. Everybody get wild. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody get down. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take you to town. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Put your hands in the air like you just don't care. Put your hands in the air like you just don't care. Everybody get down, down, down. 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 And do the mojo boogie. Boogie woogie right now. Do the mojo boogie. Everybody get wild. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody get down. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take you to town. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a special treat. You see, we have 55 new members of MOJO and the Bayou Gypsies. So would y'all come up front right now? Everybody come up front. We're gonna show them how it's done. Come on, y'all, come right up on front. Oh yeah, here they come. Oh, look at them go. Yeah, come on, y'all. Now see, we got hundreds and hundreds of people out there. And you know what? Sadako T, where you at? Yeah. Oh, look at these crazy people. You see? T. See all them people out there? You see all them people back there? You know what? They think they're doing the mojo boogie. Should we show them how it's done? We're doing the mojo boogie. Boogie woogie right now. Do the mojo boogie. Everybody get wild. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody get down. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take it to town. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Here we go now. Put your hands in the air like this don't count. Put your hands in the air like this don't count. Everybody get down, down. Everybody get down, down. Everybody get down, down. Everybody get down, down. And do the mojo boogie. Boogie woogie right now. Do the mojo boogie. Everybody get wild. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody get down. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. Gonna take it to town. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank y'all. We want to thank y'all. You gave us a wonderful night. You made Mardi Gras special for us, y'all. Oh, we're so glad for y'all to see us. We're so glad to see y'all. Oh, yeah. Look at going. Oh, yeah. Sing with me. Are you ready? Do the mojo boogie. Boogie woogie right now. Do the mojo boogie. Everybody get wild. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody get down. Do the mojo boogie, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take it to town. Are you ready? Yeah. Oh yeah. Do the mojo boogie, baby. Yeah. You ready? Are you ready? Yeah, merci beaucoup, bon Mardi Gras. Ladies and gentlemen, we are MOJO and the Bayou Gypsies.